Biden, he goes there and not only does he kind of fumble, some complaints about the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, but he gets a lecture from the Saudis in return about Abu Ghraib. So that didn't go well, and got no relief at all.
So what should have happened in your estimation? So the Saudis, like I'd certainly seen the Abraham Accords as, and I've talked to some Saudi leaders as well, and my understanding is that there's quite a large contingent there that would like to normalize relations with the Western world more broadly, and to move Saudi Arabia out of its relative isolation into something more approximating normative relationship with the rest of the world, potentially including Israel. And you'd think that would be a big deal, And so what should have happened in Saudi Arabia?
Well, I put out a tweet a few days ago saying if I were Biden, after I went to Israel and met with the acting Prime Minister Yair Lapid, I would take him with me on Air Force One. I'd fly him off to Saudi Arabia, and I would sit with him in MBS with Mohammed bin Salman, and I would do something big. I would announce some big trilateral agreement. That's there for the taking if you know how to do it. And Biden, fumbled that, obviously miserably.
Why? This is obvious.
Well,
if I can figure this out, and I don't know anything about this, if I can figure this out, I can't understand why Biden and his people can't figure this out. And I can't see anything that's more important than doing this in some real sense.
Yep. And it's like, frankly, I don't say it's low hanging fruit, but it's not high hanging fruit. I mean, it's hanging fruit. Look, Biden, he boxed himself in during the campaign saying that he would treat the Saudis as a pariah state. He showed up here kind of hat in hand, and he got nothing on oil.
Yeah.
Anyway, wouldn't have made a difference because inflation is at this point so rampant beyond oil. I'm not sure what it makes a difference. But the main thing, I think, is that Biden has been told in no uncertain terms by sort of the progressive left, you stay away from Saudi Arabia. Like he's politically boxed in on Saudi Arabia, which
he isn't boxed in unless he wants to continue to kowtow to the radical elements of his party and the progressives. He's not boxed in at all, because as you pointed out earlier in this conversation, the radical types, you said 10% on each side. I think it's far smaller than that, to be frank, although I think it's bigger on the left than on the right. Mm-hmm. There's a tiny proportion of radicals that he's kowtowing to, and he doesn't need them. And the fact that the Democrats will not separate themselves from the radicals has only ensured their electoral defeat in the fall and probably for the next presidential election. So I just think that's complete rubbish, is we can't do this because the progressives don't want us to. It's like, no, that's not true practically. It's not true strategically. It's definitely a mistake ethically. There's no grounds for it whatsoever, especially as you pointed out, given that the path forward with Saudi Arabia in relation to Israel and the rest of the Western world seems clear. So it's an abdication, as far as I can see, absolute abdication of responsibility on the part of the Democrats, let's say.
So I agree with you, and I think a lot of this is political. I mean, it starts with, Barack Obama making this terrible deal with Iran that has, insignificant verification rights and inspection rights, and expires, at this point, it would expire in just a few years. When Trump got out of that deal and Biden comes in, so Biden politically says, I'm going to go and try to reinstate this deal. He's been chasing the Iranians now for a year and a half, trying to get back into the JCPOA. It makes no sense, but he's doing it because, that's the deal that he and Obama, came up with, and they want to validate that. They want somehow to resuscitate that. The more Biden chases the JCPOA, which he'll fail at anyway. I mean, there's nothing to be achieved there. But the more he chases that, and chases this, this fantasy of diplomacy with the Iranians, he pushes the Saudis further away. He pushes the Israelis further, pushes everybody further away. And so it's this kind of, misguided chasing after the fantasy of a diplomatic outcome with Iran that precludes Saudi Arabia.
How much do you think this reflexive identification with the Palestinians as victims is driving the necessity of turning to the Iranians instead of the Saudis, or is that a separate issue?
Well, it may be a separate issue, but it's the same people. It's exactly the same people who hold both views.
Right. Well, that's why I'm curious about the connection.
Yeah. Look, it was. I have to tell you, this was. The last few days have been a frustrating experience for me because what I saw over the last few days was a complete reversal of all the things that we did that made the Middle East a much more safe and stable place. All the things that we did were kind of reversed in just a few days. Throwing money at the Palestinians, not demanding any accountability, refusing to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of all of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, then running to Saudi Arabia, resuscitating complaints that just resulted. The Saudis aren't dumb; they have answers for this. So they go back now. Biden's on his heels trying to defend Abu Ghraib because he brought up Khashoggi, and from there it just went nowhere. He went home. He went home, with his hat in his hand. Nothing. He got nothing out of it. And we could have gotten so much more on this trip. I don't even know why they had the trip. I mean, why would you orchestrate a trip like this if you're just going to insult your allies and come home empty-handed?
Well, my prime minister Justin Trudeau tends to orchestrate a trip like that when the scandals and inflation on the domestic front get so unbearable that he needs to distract people.
Yep. Well, sounds like that's exactly what happened here.
Okay, so let's talk about an elephant under the carpet here. So you talked a lot about making peace with the Sunni moderates. Where are the moderate Shiites in all of this? And what is the fact that they're not at the table? Like, what lurking catastrophes are associated with that, and how might that be rectified?
Well, look, the Shiites that are relevant here are, kind of half of Iraq or slightly more than half of Iraq, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and in Iran. And in all three cases, but especially in Iran, but true of Hezbollah as well, they're not moderate. There's not the slightest thing moderate about them. And they are at this point, look, are there radical Sunnis? Of course, you have ISIS, you have Hamas is a Sunni, although they're being funded by Iran. But the primary, and I'm not suggesting that there aren't moderate Shiites. I'm sure there are, but the ones that make noise are primarily in Iran and in Hezbollah. And they're the farthest thing from moderate. They represent existential threats to the state of Israel and elsewhere.
So why did you guys have no luck with them?